calling the Selectboard Sewer Commissioners meeting to order. This meeting will be recorded and held virtually in a hybrid setting. It's being recorded by town staff. Tonight we have 3 members present. David will be a few minutes late and Raj will not be joining us. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In pure fashion, I'm going to go out of order. We normally do a public comment, but I'm going to save that because we have an appointment here, and I'm thinking the chief probably wants to bring him forward.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the Select Board for putting us on the agenda tonight. I present for your consideration as our next full-time officer, Christian Martinez. He actually likes to be called Marty.
Are you, is that, no? Okay.
Just trying to inject a little humor in there, lighten it up a little bit. He is a graduate of West Boylston High School, and he attended the elementary school as well. He is a graduate of the Worcester State University, getting a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Which academy was it?
NECC Haverhill.
Haverhill Academy. He's worked for the last 3 years as a police officer in Acton and 2 years before that as a dispatcher in Acton. He did apply with us before, but that was before he had the academy. So he's really eager to work here. Applying twice. I guess persistence paid off. I think he'll make a great addition to our department, and I think he'll be very happy working here.
And his official start date, you said, is in February?
February 5th.
Not much has changed since you've gone to either of those schools, I think. No.
Doesn't seem like it.
The town's pretty, not a lot has changed. Do you have any,
Still the
Carter,
same
this
high
is
school.
technically your appointment.
I've met with the potential officer upon the recommendation of the acting chief. I liked him and I fully endorse the chief's recommendation to you and ask that you do ratify it as opposed to waiting out that 15-day period.
And you're sure? You've met everyone at the station.
Oh, yeah, last
And
chance.
you don't want to wait, Raj isn't here for the photo, so you're sure you want to do it tonight?
Yes.
All right, I've been trying to help you. So for the appointment in here, is there certain dates for the ratification? I didn't see any.
The ratification would be reflected in the minutes with the start date of February 5, I believe.
Okay, February 5th. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You're
Welcome
appointed.
to the town of West
How about that?
Boylston.
Thank
You're
you.
in.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Welcome aboard. Thank you.
With the indulgence of the board, we will
We're gonna do it
swear
all
you.
tonight. You're getting sworn in and everything.
Get a picture of that. We never got a picture of swearing.
I know, I was like, we never get this one.
Shift starts in 5 minutes.
No overtime.
All right. Please raise your right hand. You're going to repeat after me. I state your full name.
Christian Martinez,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States of America,
of the United States of America,
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
the laws and ordinances of the
laws-
town
laws and ordinances of the town
of West Boylston,
of West Boylston,
the rules and regulations
the rules and regulations
of the West Boylston Police Department,
of the West Boylston Police Department,
and I will, to the best of my ability,
and I will, to the best of my ability,
faithfully perform the duties
faithfully perform the duties
of police officer
of police officer
in and for the town of West Boylston.
in and for the town of West Boylston.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
I'll have you sign right here. Right there. And you can print your name in the front.
Chief, do you want to take the photo with him up here? And
If you don't mind, that'd be great.
Let's move all the
Family?
not pretty stuff out of the way.
Picture with you?
All right, and that's actually for you to keep. I'll have you sign my book when we're done.
Okay, thank you.
Come on. Guys? Anna? No, just your family.
That's wrong, Brad.
You guys get to stand whenever you want.
Guys, come forward.
You dress up, come on.
Guys are reinforcements.
We try to get out of the way.
Why does nobody smile? Because they're police officers, they're not happy.
All set?
We good?
Good. Second one, come on.
Sure.
You sure you want us?
I know. I look super tall with everyone, I'll just stand here. All right, I'll move over. Perfect.
Hey, crop them out later.
Yeah, no, sorry. Got it, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Now all I can think of is and it's not good.
Oh, yeah. So my nickname in high school is always C-Mark.
Actually,
Martinez. Oh, you were with
All right.
when I was working there for the prayer form.
Yeah, with your hand.
That was cold. Yeah, everybody.
I said, yes.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, have a good night. It's like a
Congratulations.
Need a coat rack.
Well, that cleared the room. Thank you very much, folks. Thank you. I'm very proud. Took him away from me from action, but he's happy here.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Now, I will open it up to public comment. This is a 15-minute period. It's an opportunity for the public to address any of their concerns or questions regarding town operations or programs, with the exception of urgent matters. The board shall not discuss or act on anything brought forward and could in the future schedule a future agenda date. Do we have anyone from the public that would
I
like to?
decline to make sure everybody's comfortable tonight, okay?
Thank you, Mark. But you can. Ray?
I have no opinion on anything.
Do you know, that is so untrue.
I find that
We do
hard to
have
believe.
some folks online. Does anyone, Patty, I see Patty is unmuted. I don't know if Patty, did you have public comment? Going once? Twice? Okay, moving on. I actually expected this.
I have no comment, sorry about that.
No problem,
no
Patty.
comment
I just
right
wanted to
now,
make
thank
sure. I
you.
saw that you were off mute.
So the sum total of our public comment is 3 no comments.
I was gonna say, it's not bad. Review and approve the warrants for the period covering January 8th, 2026 to January 14th, 2026. So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. Review and approve the meeting minutes from January 7th, 2026.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none? All approved? All
All in favor?
in favor?
Aye.
You know, it's kind of hard, can you throw the police officers out if they're too loud in the hallway?
Who do you call?
I was like, what do you tell? All right, don't start that, God. All right, so, the next biggest topic, which I actually really thought we'd have a larger turnout, for the update on our trash collection system roles, just an update from you, Carter. I was hoping we'd have more folks attend.
Is it a hearing?
No, but it's publicized. People attend more than hearings. Don't start.
So we have additional comments that I can make under the administrators. What I'd hoped would be a weekly report, but I'm afraid is going to turn out to be a bi-weekly report for you. But what I want to address first is the structure of who's doing what. We have had a staff team meeting weekly, developing the action steps, the Gantt charts that you're starting to see. At the same time, there was a subcommittee established by the Select Board to work on a number of the same items. I did prepare this memorandum prior to my ability to meet with that subcommittee. They did meet on Friday, and I was able to join them for a good portion of that meeting. I think that what came out of that meeting is really the best way forward. That is that the chair of the Finance Committee joined us this past Tuesday, and I believe to the extent that his position allows, he will be joining us each of those Tuesdays going forward. So we now have a member of SWAT on the working group, we have the Finance Committee on the working group, and it's our belief, I don't know if they took any official action after I left that Zoom meeting, but it's our belief that the board should consider dissolving this subcommittee, thanking the members for their willingness to take this role on. And I don't know if the chair of the Finance Committee wants to speak to what he saw on Tuesday and what any additional conversation might have been amongst that committee meeting. But that is, for better or worse, the thoughts of the staff.
I would be glad to come.
I mean, come on up. I would say it would be great to, I think, get any transparency into this process because it's been kind of huddled and it hasn't been out to the public, and I think that's why we have so many questions. But go ahead, Brad.
Well, from a standpoint of transparency, yeah, we did meet last Friday. We very much did want Carter to attend because I think everybody were suffering from the same issues of who's doing what. And I think we were able to work through that. I think the committee, without taking a formal vote, thinks that dissolution is the likely proper channel because we're talking about a true working group where we need to actually develop procedures and assign responsibilities, and that's beyond the purview of a committee like that. So it made every sense. I had the opportunity to attend the meeting on Tuesday, which Carter was running, and I will say I had very positive impressions of his organization and knowledge base. So I think we're going to be in good shape. Time is not our friend, but everybody understands that. And I think coming out of it, the one thing we have to all recognize is there will probably be some glitches out of the gates, and we're just going to have to deal with it because it really is what the town needs structurally to deal with this.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
So I'll just say as a starting point, I had added this agenda item back in November to the select board meeting agenda due to the fact we were getting updates, fragmented updates, kind of small.
Kenny's here.
Kenny, can you mute for me?
On top of his car.
Right there, top right corner. Right there.
So I had originally put this on because the select board, we were getting updates via small tidbits and meetings. But the reality was our residents had voted to start a trash enterprise account, and none of us really knew what that meant, what that entailed. And I hadn't seen a rollout plan, and we were a short period of time away. In creating it, the hope was to bring, kind of to put a group of people to force some transparency so we could see what the plan was. I do agree that based on what you presented the last meeting, understanding we have a few weeks left, I do feel that the best way to go is probably to dissolve that, but I think it initiated a conversation, maybe, of who's doing what, so I would absolutely support and recommend the dissolution of that other committee for the implementation, I think it was, of the trash enterprise account committee. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll open this up for further discussion.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I mean, well, it's just more of like a statement, I guess. So I understand that social media is not the best platform for questions and answers, but I will say, you know, over the past couple of weeks, there were some valid questions on social media. I'm just wondering if anybody from this committee has taken a look to just, you know, try to get these answered ahead of time versus have them fall through the cracks. And I mean, some of them were, you know, pretty simple, yes or no, and some of them were a little bit more complicated. So I'm just wondering if there's been any discussion about some of the questions that have already arisen from social media.
So I don't have access to that social media account. You have to become a member. I can't just observe and swipe and answer. I can tell you that Candace, your town clerk, is working with me. If you look at your town webpage, you're going to see news and announcements, calendar, town meetings, and some other. And joining that, hopefully by the end of the day tomorrow, will be a trash and recycling program. That will then take you to a subscribable page. The things that you can subscribe to will be added to it, so you can subscribe to any updates. So we'll be using the news and announcements and the updates. We will then be posting FAQs, which Norma has been working on, and we'll be supplementing that each week as we go along. I did get a number of, those CMS inquiry forms that come to your website. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get to them as quickly as I would have liked last week, but I think between phone calls and emails, I've addressed about a dozen of them today. Where I could, I gave them the specific answers of where we are, noting that this is the current thought and that these will be subject to 2 public hearings. This depends upon the questions that were raised. The Board of Health public hearing will be advertised next week. That will be February 11 at 6 p.m. here in this room. And we have on your Gantt chart a tentative date for a public hearing before this body on the rules, procedures, and costs. So we're doing our best. If anyone has any questions, please. Best is email. Unfortunately, telephone, it just takes time to get back to people. Feel free, any citizen, any member of the committees, email me directly, cterranzini@westboylston-ma.gov. We'll get you an answer. Those are being added to a full list for the committee to work on. We are hopeful that people will subscribe to this page, and we'll try to find those opportunities that we've discussed, Council on Aging, and others, to get as much out as we can. There are 2 very important things for the citizens and for the board, I think, to recognize. The first is as Ray said, this is evolving. And also there very well, with any new program, may be some wrinkles. So we need folks, if we say, this is the current plan, it's current plan up until it gets in front of you and you vote on those rules and regulations. You may make a change. You may say to us, well, that's the monthly price. What's the price if we do this? What's the price? I'm sure you're going to have a lot of questions. So we need, the forbearance of the public and the boards and committees as this evolves. That's a long ways around answering your question, but I've already shortened up my weekly report to you.
All right, perfect, thank you.
I'll close loop. Does any other questions on the dissolving this current committee? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Just on this topic, I do see a lot of points in this. I will say there's Norma, who is on here, was also trying to field questions like many of us on what we knew. Is there anything that you want to talk about or present for this program, or do you want to wait till the town administrator report? Do you want to do this first? How do you want to?
When we get into the, you will get that report that goes out to the implementation team weekly. You will see when you get to my weekly report, I'll just touch lightly upon where we were as of this past Tuesday and where we're headed this coming Tuesday.
Okay, so we want to hold this off to your report. You know, with her. Okay, so the next item on our agenda tonight is to look at the Tibnan Drive, which was earmarked for, it has earmarked money for our cemetery. A little history on this we got from the last meeting was, this was actually given to us by the Light Department to use as a cemetery. It's been, I think, several years since before my time, since we've received this. The town has accepted this. It currently is by the solar fields, and I believe up by the Worcester prisons, up that section of town. And at our last meeting, we did have the chair of the cemetery commission come forward to talk about looking at purchasing other property instead of using this property. I think you met with them. After our meeting, I had asked for them to go back and to discuss a little bit of what they wanted to do. Do you want to give me kind of your summary on how that turned out?
So, coming this Monday night, I believe, subject to whether it snows and whether enough people attend, is the Townwide Needs Planning Committee. I got the name, okay, good. And the chair, vice chair encouraged the different departments to submit information on what they need to try to get the committee's arms around what are the total needs. I would encourage everybody to set aside for a minute how you meet those needs. Let's quantify them first. Towards that end, I had thought we might be able to use the cemetery money to do a first cut on a lot of these properties as to whether or not they're suitable for cemetery uses. And then with a little bit more information, we can supply that to the fire station DPW folks. This will all be very, conceptual, first level kinds of information. Now, couple wrinkles. The Cemetery Commission did vote in that meeting that they opposed the use of Tibnan Drive, and in the memorandum I gave you, explained why. I did explain to them that they might need to understand that it is this board that has control over the property and those funds, and might need to make a decision that it doesn't necessarily align with the thoughts of the Cemetery Commission. The other wrinkle is that it turns out you do not have a town engineer in accord with the procurement standards for the state. So we would have to issue a change order to the architects on the fire and DPW study, at least with respect to Tibnan Drive, and then determine whether or not we could amend that scope further or would need to do a new procurement process. Finally, I need to make sure that everyone understands that it's not quite as simple as finding a piece of land you like and just plain buying it. There are provisions within the state's procurement law that allow you to do that in unique circumstances, but you really need to be able to identify what is it that you have to have. And the simplest example I use is a water tank needs to be a high elevation. So if you have a piece of property available at a high elevation and can quickly identify it, then you can probably go ahead with so-called unique acquisition. But you got to be able to identify those unique properties that you need. So the question comes down on the second page, with all that as background. I've laid out a series of draft motions for your consideration. Motion 1 is whether or not to approach DCR, knowing that the only land they're truly interested in is your rail trail. Also, there's Article 98 of the state constitution that requires legislative action on transfers of parklands, and so they can't just give you something. There needs to be a swap or a means of protecting parklands. The other is for me to approach DCR knowing that the town simply does not want to, is not open to a transfer of the rail trail. With that deck cleared, that then tells me, are you open to looking at DCR lands under one of two conditions? And if neither of those passes, then we know that's gone. We don't even think about that. Secondly, is this board open to doing a conceptual layout on Tivnan Drive, knowing the cemetery is opposed to it? And that's your decision to make. Unfortunately, it would be nice if everybody's aligned, but in this case, they're not. Or not. Once I know these things, I can then take a step back. We'll have the meeting Monday night, and we can try to develop the next step of our game plan.
I have a question. Can you just elaborate on the engineer section again? So what is it so we thought that we had a town engineer, and because of that, we had already submitted something that included those plans, and we have to revise it, or is this something different?
Under the state's procurement law, anything above 10,000 and between 50,000 is subject to a solicitation process. If you're above 50,000, different process. Not going to bore you with all the steps. And so I had been told that you have a town engineer. You don't. You have an engineer for peer review, but I can't stretch that contract and that term to cover the kinds of work we're looking at. Because what we want an engineer to do is to take a look at these various sites and using readily available soils mapping, wetlands mapping, USGS topographies. Let's just take that first cut of what's this land look like, and is there a large chunk that's out of bounds, or the soil's just not right? Then we would have them identify where, now that they know that, where would they want some test pits dug? And so if we own the land, we can just go in and do it. If we don't own the land, we've got to get permission from the property owners to go in and do that. Those test pits would be at locations identified by an engineer and observed by the engineer. We're not talking about doing complicated soil borings or anything else, but it is important to have a soil specialist or an engineer on site to photograph and observe the different layers of earth. So now we've got wetlands, we've got topography, we've got baseline soils, and we have some very specific observations. With that, and I'm cheap, so I always try to do it cheaper than the engineers want to do it. We can do a very conceptual first level cut of what would it take to level this area, how many graves could go in what area. And I have posed to the Cemetery Commission that they need to think about what they're looking for. You know, today it's about 50% coffin burials and about 50%, and in some regions even higher, cremation. And how are you going to deal with those cremations? Columbarium, sprinkling garden, because that tells you how much land you need. So we would issue a contract amendment to the firm on contract now, at least for Tivnan. We talk about the rest of it, and if we can shoehorn that all in, we would do it. If we can't, we'd have to do a quick procurement. I did recommend last time, I'll repeat again this time, go get a town engineer under contract. 3-year contract, 3-year extension, and then you just issue work orders as you need them. So you don't have to do this every time something of any size comes along. Again, I've babbled too long. Does that answer?
Yes, thank you.
Ray, come on up. Ray is chair of the FinCom committee. I'm figuring you have input on this.
Yeah, on this particular case, there may be some history that helps rationalize the position. Speaking as the vice chair of the original DPW Fire Station Committee,
Okay.
when we were issuing the RFP, we had contemplated whether or not to include test borings and other soil sampling because, it's material to their ability to assess a site, to know is there ledge, is it perkable, et cetera. So I don't know if it necessarily made it explicitly into the notes from that committee, but we certainly did contemplate that this could have been part of that contract originally. I don't know if that'll simplify some of the
I do have the
rationalization.
contract. I'll go back and take a look at it.
Well, the contract did not include it, but the deliberations of the committee did include whether or not we should do that, and it was opted at that time that if need be, we could modify things after the contract was issued to allow for expansion. So,
Do bear in mind that an analysis of all these lands has to be done under the cover of
That your market has in
planning and
place.
expanding the cemetery. So we're looking at all these sites from that visual. And then we'll turn that information over to others who may find it useful.
but just, you would not have had access to that background
No,
information.
thank
I figure you might want to hear it.
Appreciate it.
So I would say it was before our time. It was voted at town meeting to accept that land and to use that land for cemetery. Then there was an earmark from, I'm guessing, with the help through Mr. Jim O'Day, to, I think, $175,000 to assess that property for a build-out, or what was the
I
earmark?
think it was 130 or 135, and I think you have about 125 left now.
Okay, so, and we have to use that money by,
June 30, 2027.
okay, and what came up at the last meeting, and I don't disagree, is not taking action or not using it and wasting the funds seems very difficult for me, but also then making a decision at this table that solely goes against the vote that was held on town meeting floor by the residents also is a bit of a problem, I would say, for me. Because we could take a vote here and say, forgo it, and we'll lose the earmark and not use those funds. Or uphold it, which then goes against the cemetery's vote that they want another piece of property and not this one.
You do not necessarily lose those monies by not going forward with Tivnan. But we do need to get started somewhere. We could still use those money to look at other sites, but for the most immediate review, DCR owns most of your land. Either you want to look at that under some set of circumstances or you don't. You do own Tivnan. It was given to you for a purpose. Town meeting voted on that purpose. You either decide to move forward with that or not. We can look at other lands as well, but bear in mind, all must be looked at under this earmark, in keeping with that earmark.
Just a quick question, the 125, how far will that take us? How many different lands can we look at?
It would be hard for me to say without talking with the engineer. They are due to call me. I reached out to the architect to try to get connected with them, but I would be nervous about giving you any kind of estimate.
I mean, because ideally, if we're able to look at more than one, then we look at Tivnan
Oh,
And-
you should absolutely be able to look at more than just Tivnan.
and the one
on
that
this
they're
money.
interested in, and if it stretches even more, maybe a third option. And then at least we'll have the, the information about, what we can and can't do for a cemetery.
Just bear in mind that if it's going to not be, if it's going to be under unique circumstances, they've got to lay out what their needs are, and we can help them get there.
Can you remind me of the size of the property that has been earmarked in acreage? Is it 20?
Tiverton?
Yes.
I've been given different estimates ranging from 20 to 40.
Something,
Okay.
because there's 2 parcels.
So is it my understanding that the cemetery committee has thought that the entire parcel is not up to spec, or there are portions of it that are problematic?
I can only quote you,
Which was the whole, to your knowledge, that they felt that that parcel was just not adequate? Okay. I didn't know.
they said that, prior studies, I don't know how widespread those were, and they give a number of individuals who were involved. Findings were as follows: severe uneven topography, man-made cisterns would be required to address runoff, outcroppings, ledge, drainage issues, and so on and so forth. And then there is the public relations concern that they've cited of its location.
So I think what you provided in the packets, I kind of outline the challenges and opportunities and also what they took a vote for on January 15th. It is left up to this board, I would say. Some of the options here, I think one of the hurdles as well is they presented 3 different properties. The properties are privately owned properties, so we would need to get the owner to agree. One of the property owners actually outright said, "You will not get this, it's water, it abuts DCR." Actually, 2 of the properties do abut DCR land. So there could be, I would say, a vote, right, to try to get in contact with those owners, see if they'd be willing to let us dig up parts of their property if we could get an engineer to do that. But that's not something we can vote. These are not town-owned properties. These are all privately owned. My one problem with one of the properties is what was put in front of us was $1 million, and it was assessed for $480,000 for the property. I don't feel it's appropriate to ask the taxpayers to purchase a piece of property that is more, it was actually more than double, it was 1.2 or 3 they were asking, than the assessed value.
I can
But
just
it's
chime
left to
in
the
real
board.
quick about that, is that actually I did a lot of digging on that, and we actually can't, as a town, buy it without special legislation. We can't just buy land that's, what's the word I'm looking for? Assessed at a lower value.
Yeah, you will have to have it independently appraised.
Even if the appraisal comes in, let's say a little bit higher, though, we can't pay over what the appraisal is. So it's impossible. If that seller wants to sell us at the appraised value, then that's a conversation we can have. But as it stands right now, with 2 properties abutting, wetlands, we can't. In this one, they're not willing to sell it at a reasonable price. So we are only left with Tiverton.
Or what else are you find as you look at all the town? That's why I'm encouraging the town to, start with a fresh sheet of paper.
And I think partly the world solving townwide planning that is looking at, I mean, it needs to happen. I am not opposed to having a conversation with DCR, but the reality is I personally, sitting in this seat, know of fire, DPW, both schools, I don't know, fields, we have cemetery.
Water
and
district.
the water district just came in and said, I mean, for us, like I said, the last meeting, it's usually whoever gets here first and presents the best wins, right? And they go on a warrant and then they have to present at town meeting. The reality is someone needs to put all of this on a page and say, I mean, unless we're gonna ask them for, all the land back, I'm not sure where we would stick something like this. So can this, I don't wanna push it off, could this wait till the townwide planning? Would you recommend us take action to at least move forward with the Tiverton?
I don't have a problem being tabled. I will say at some point, the town's gonna have to deal with it. You've known this has been going on for a bit.
I personally would entertain a motion to at least, no matter what we owned this property, we could use it for other things. That information is valuable. I've done a lot of projects in town where they're like, no, we never did it. We didn't hole. We don't know what the soil looks like. Drainage will be fine. And then we start and they're like, oh, there was a well under here. I guess we'll take this out. But I do think it'll be valuable to at least get an engineer, right? For you to move forward with asking that engineering group that we have currently doing fire and DPW to give us some information on this property. Because I think no matter what, when we go to town meeting, they're gonna say, did you even explore this, or did you turn it around just to spend our tax dollars on something else? So,
What if we were to do this, which I think meets everyone's needs? If this item were tabled, I can be back, I won't be here, but I'll have the memorandum for you. On February 4th, what the engineer is telling me about Tiverton. I might be able to give you a better answer to your question, and the townwide planning committee will have had an opportunity to discuss the approach that they think makes sense to the overall issue. If that's an approach that makes sense to this board, I think it kind of touches all the bases without putting this board out front of the cemetery commission just yet.
I like that idea, and I also just, I just want to make sure that cemetery didn't have other ideas for the funds too. Obviously it makes sense to test this area because that's what town meeting had dedicated it for. However, if they had other plans that we're not even discussing tonight, I'd like to give them the option to bring those up.
I'll send a reminder to Barbara tomorrow on that.
And should we proceed forward with actually getting some soil samples out of the property, and they look as not promising as we assume they're going to look, then I think we have, then at that point, a legitimate case at town meeting to say to the town, yes, you previously voted to earmark this property for this purpose. We've done our due diligence on that property. It's not going to do well for the original intended purpose. But we do have other land needs, right? And we can, at that point, sort of, once we know more data about it, maybe have something to put together in front of the town that if it's not going to be used for, if it doesn't end up being useful for the original purpose, one of the 5 other things that we need for could be put forward for the town to choose.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question, Liz. Can it be used? I know we don't have a ton of plans, but we don't have an expansion plan, right? What are other communities doing? Do you need the different types? Could this money be used to create kind of that master plan of what should we do? What should we be looking at?
With respect to the cemetery?
Yeah, could they create something like that?
Absolutely. If they feel, I'm not a specialist in this area, grandfather bought, as I said, 30 plots, they're all used. So we know what we're doing going forward. But if there is a firm that really is knowledgeable in this, there's no reason they couldn't be retained if it's, under a certain amount. We don't even have to do a request for
Because it's been
quotations.
it might be something, because I'm guessing the cemetery committee, just like many, we're volunteers, right? But that isn't what we do for a living. But I have to think there are people that do this for a living to say, hey, build a wall here. This will give you X number of years. You can offer it this way. This is kind of how you plan out different arrangements. I know where West Boylston, we do it kind of, well, these are how many lots you have, and this is how, but they're everywhere else. There has to be
I will hope that a
someone.
firm such as that is
Maybe one will get
at the
created
trade
tonight.
show and over the next 2 days or so.
So if, I forgot about that, but maybe Barbara and the committee might actually not know they could use it for that. And that would factor into townwide planning. That would factor into, updating the master plan that's been out there forever. So I think it could be used, and then they have something to work off of to use that to say, okay, that parcel will fit our need.
Absolutely.
Okay, that was just my thought. Do you need us to vote or take any action, or you have like?
I'm of the formal type, so I think a motion to table is always a good idea.
Just real quick before we do that, now you brought up another issue that I just wanted to clarify. Now that we had that earmarked for cemetery, are we allowed to use it for something else without going to town meeting?
No, it's a
No,
state earmark.
Okay,
even if
so-
you went to town meeting, it's
Yeah.
a state budget earmark.
I don't mean the funds.
Specifically.
I mean, I'm sorry, the earmark's not the right term. The fact that we designated that Tiverton for a cemetery, that property, for a cemetery at town meeting however many years ago. Do we need to change that if we want to use it for, I don't know, a circus place, you know?
I don't know what the meeting was, but I'm a firm believer that you need to keep your word with town meeting. If you accepted it for cemetery purposes, if you're gonna repurpose it for some reason, I'm a believer that you need to explain to the town meeting why you're making that change.
Right.
And another thing is just when, part of this townwide planning, in preparation of next week's meeting, is I know that the fire DPW had used Tiverton as one of their sites. So I would hate to overlap our effort in looking at samples if they're already doing that with a different firm. I'm just curious where that stands and.
I think, I think we have a workaround on that, but that will need a firm vote on the 4th of February.
So being on that committee, they're looking at multiple properties. That was offered to them. Fire said no, because it was too far out of town.
Right.
DPW said, yeah, sure, we'll take the property and put a building on it. Partly for townwide planning, does it make sense to have, 9 independent buildings for a town with 7,800 residents?
Right.
So, I mean, partly,
I guess my question was more if, in this RFP that went out and whatever, are they including soil sample? Like, are we doubling our efforts?
Right.
this didn't have, they had come to us with a plan, but they haven't actually, it's not contracted to like dig the holes. It's what could actually happen, what could a building look like, what's your dimensions, and proposing it back. Your next one would be kind of the site. I'll go with, you contract with an engineering company to go to the different ones to test things, to see how much will it cost to put it in and things like that. I think they could do it, but I don't think we've explicitly told them to do it. And that's also earmarked money.
Okay.
Free money is what we're going off of
Right.
and everything.
Yeah.
But it could be worth giving it a shot.
And, sorry, I don't want to.
Go for it.
The part, the first part where we talked about DCR and all of that, does that allude to the fact that the Pierce Street property would need DCR approval in order for access, or is this a completely different subject? Because I know that the cemetery was looking at Pierce Street as one of their properties.
This is DCR owns
Oh,
much of your town. So the idea is, again, I'm a clean sheet of paper kind of guy. Look at all the DCR lands, and there's some that are gonna be extremely obvious. And then isolate the ones that are not so obvious, and determine if you might have any interest in them. And if you do, then you talk with them. If you don't, it's done and over.
Okay.
I have to respectfully suggest that by zeroing in on properties this early on, I know it's kind of, it scratches the itch, but I'm not sure it's the best way to go.
I honestly could say, once you come out of that townwide, once everything's on a piece of paper and you're like, okay, so this is, I think at that point, at least we know, it could be rough, but it's like, we need 27 acres of land. The land needs to be centrally located and flat. It needs to have these purposes. It could just be that, but that would at least give something for us to be more comfortable to say, we vote for you to engage them. Because right now, even at the last meeting, what I said is, I've had 3 different boards say, well, we should call DCR because we need to get it for us. And it's like, you get 3 acres versus 20, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like someone
No.
strategically thinking about this.
Yeah, no, if those different committees are not rowing together, then this is not going to go well for the town as a whole.
But
The other
just,
thing that happens, if you produce a map of all the DCR lands and then you say, okay, these are, Now you have a nice 24 by 36 inch foam core mounted exhibit that says, here's all the DCR lands. Yep. We looked at them all. Yep. We were willing to trade or we weren't willing to trade. Here's what their answer was. It kind of gets ahead of the, did you do this? Did you do this? You know, all of those questions. I usually try to approach things of anticipating as many of the questions as I can and getting them answered right up front as opposed to standing in front of an audience and saying,
The Pierce Street location that cemetery also was looking at, one of the issues in my research going back years ago, when they looked at it the first time, not only was the price compared to what it's assessed, but also the fact that the access would have to be granted by DCR. So this is where I'm wondering if there's a twofold problem here, if it's the assessed value and now DCR, is it even worth going down that road? I mean, if one of them says yes, then we have to have the other one say yes, and it's kind of like I guess my question is it better to at least start the conversation with DCR to see what they are even willing to, or do we want to have something first before we go to them?
I think we need to know what the sum total of land and rough acres that we're requiring to meet the needs for all these various committees, and have a firm knowledge of what that is, and then see if any of what they have, to Carter's point, would seemingly meet those needs. And then that's the conversation I think to have at that point. If we look over everything and like none of it is seemingly, either there's not enough of it to meet needs of all, or it's just not of, you know, for whatever host of reasons we decide on these various committees that it doesn't pan out, then it's probably not even worth having that conversation. But I think we at least need to look at their land holdings, our land needs, and see if there's a possibility. That's my opinion.
and there's multiple ways to acquire property. You know, in one community, someone donated the land to us and they were angry at me at first because we kind of encouraged them to do that. And afterwards it was like, well, wait a minute. Yeah, I filed my income taxes and I saw the impact that that had on my income taxes and I saw what I would have had to have paid. So yeah, that worked out fine. So I wouldn't throw properties out right this minute just because it's appraised at X and you think they want Y. There are other conversations that you can have with people.
I'm going to ask one fairly naive question, and I hope we can put it to bed. I noticed towards the north side of our town, as you start to abut up towards Sterling, that there are a fair amount of undeveloped properties up there, a lot of woodland area that I think some of it is DCR controlled, but some of it I think is privately owned as well. Does the state look down upon towns, one town looking to say, hey, this piece of property is not within the town of West Boylston, it's in the next town over? If that landowner was interested in selling said undeveloped piece of property, but it technically lies in Sterling, is that something that you've seen towns do before?
Most towns
Not
I've never
generally in this state. I mean, there are towns that have reservoirs or, you know, water towers, that kind of thing. But it's not widespread.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's not widespread. And there's no requirement on the cemetery. I'd have to go back and look and confirm this, but I'm pretty comfortable in saying that there's no requirement in the statute that requires you to provide the cemetery space be within your town. I would need to go back and look at that statute, and I will do that over the next day or two.
Thank you.
We can regionalize the cemetery. Sorry, I just wanted to say the word. I'm going to say it at least 3 more times. All right.
Motion to table.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So great to have seconds so quickly. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next item. on the agenda that I've lost under all the papers. So update on the town administrator search committee and possible action for select board interview dates.
Reservoir Triangle.
Reservoir Triangle, you want us to skip?
No, I just skipped that, so now I'll do it next.
It's okay. TA search committee. All right, so we, as a committee, had 29 applications. We invited 6 to interview. 4 chose to interview. And we are now in the stage of trying to decide who's going to do some references and next steps. But we would like to, we did say originally when we posted this back at the beginning of December that we would like to keep it open, but MMA website just closes it after a month. So I was wondering if you can just reopen it somehow, the posting?
I don't think we can reopen it, but we can load it
Repost?
back up
Okay.
if you've got the original.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the board did vote to open it back up again just because we didn't give any firm end date on applications. And in the meantime, we hope to have finalists in the next month or so for the select board to interview.
Wonderful, thank you for the update. All right, I guess I'll go to the reservoir. So the triangle by our reservoir, we've been informed that Captain Ron's will not be coming back. He has, he's juggling many different sites and different events that he's done. He struggled a little bit last year trying to get there every day that he's supposed to get there. So that means, I believe we've heard from, is it Pischel and Peck? Is that the one?
Mortar,
Yes, I believe so.
mortar and pestle.
So I'm guessing they are coming out, but we now have a spot open. I wasn't sure, I looked at a contract, but it was from 4 years ago for vendor fees. It was like 600, but I've come to realize that I've been told it's more than that. It's 2,500. Do you need us to vote to post that, or is that something you can?
Well, I guess the question is, do you want to go forward with the current policy, or do you want to try to have a quick discussion about some potential changes to it? It's kind of, I will say it's kind of late in the season, in my view, to change it for this coming season, but if that is something, I did get a email on that. It had been noted for discussion. I need to know how you want to proceed.
Are there recommendations that you have for us in changing the policy?
I do not. I didn't look at it,
Okay.
quite
I have a
frankly.
This-
But I did get this, inquiry of, that the board had talked about some of the things in the policy weren't fully aligned. Should there be some changes? And I need to know how to proceed.
I have a question. There's a lot of talk of burger and hot dogs. Like, is our preference to have, is that just an example? Or are we literally saying that we want one of the vendors to sell burgers and hot dogs?
So, I'll be honest, this is one of those policies that were made 4 pages long for, it's like, I will say to manage individual who we want there, what we want them to have. I don't believe so. It was more of a, we wrote it for the people that applied for it at that period of time. And actually back then they had them like fill out an application, there was like a lottery, it was the whole big process. I think it just happens like who applies for it, they're willing to pay and meet all the standards, they can work those days. We give them a license.
I think there was some intention to have variety, so that one would do one, one would do something, so they weren't both.
They're not
the same.
competing, which makes sense, but I think that maybe Captain Ron's was there first and this was written so that the second one didn't come in and kind of impede on them, and the other one came in, they're very different. So I'm just wondering if we take out some of the wording specific to burgers. I don't know. I mean, it could be a taco truck, it could be, who knows? It's something that doesn't compete, maybe the wording is just that it doesn't compete with the existing.
I think that may, if I may, that perhaps was just used as, kind of a common example, because
I was
if you
wondering.
look at the program purpose, the last sentence of it states that it's a goal of the program to have no more than one food truck that sells hamburgers and/or hot dogs.
Right. I mean, if we're gonna just use it as an example, then I think that that's fine. If we're gonna take it literal, then I think we should change it.
So if Mortar and Pestle is returning, given that their menu generally is fairly different than what we're describing, then at this moment in time, I don't think an action is directly required, because we're not gonna have two of the same, but I do think that it would be worth revisiting sometime prior to people trying to sign up for those positions right now. I don't think what I'm concerned about is if we try to change it right now and people have already started looking or going down the process, and then we suddenly change the paperwork on them mid applying, that's just gonna create confusion.
Right, because theoretically, I forget the timeline here, but this should have been advertised at this point in time.
Well, I was gonna say, should be advertised, and the other company should have, if they were renewing, told us they were renewing and given us the money. So, I would say, if there's, I don't think we need to vote to take action to post it. It just looks like it's open, it gets posted. So I'd say let's post it, see who applies, and make sure that, that other, spot is actually going to renew and has paid, because if not, we would maybe have two of them out there.
So for the purposes of my understanding, we're gonna post in accord with this, but I'm gonna include revisiting the policy at large in the transition memo for your incoming TA, so that conversation can happen more in the fall, when you have enough time to talk about it.
Yes, please.
And then have it ready for January.
Yeah, but I think in general, the main tweaks would just be that if we're gonna give preference to whichever vendor's been there longer and is returning, then it's whatever, there's only two spots, so the other one just needs to hopefully have a fairly diversified food menu that is not going to be essentially selling the same things as the one that has seniority. That's basically the only change.
All right. So the next item we had on here was executive session, but I am actually considering that we have the town administrator's report. Leave the executive session to last, since we can not come back into open session, if you don't mind that.
Not at all.
And that way we can go completely out of order on what's on the agenda and keep things pretty cohesive. Go ahead, so it's all yours.
So you have this report in front of you, and as I mentioned, I'm afraid they're gonna have to be, consistent with your meetings. I can't get it done on a weekly basis like I would like to. So the Finance Committee, with respect to the coming budget, the House 1 should be released on the 28th of January. I'm hopeful that the governor will use the opportunity of speaking at the MMA to perhaps give us an early peek into what her plans are. So with House 1 on the 28th, we should have draft cherry sheets the very next day, and Leslie and I will be able to finish up the revenue estimates by the 2nd of February, get them off to Finance Committee and to this board. I did meet with the school superintendent to talk about my approach to things, so he understood and he wanted to share with me where he thought he was headed. And we'll have a draft of the review schedule of expenses. I'm going to meet, I do have a few departments I want to meet with one-on-one, and we'll have that schedule out to them later this week. The town administrator budget continues to be analyzed with each payroll, so we can give you that number when you're finally able to get into contract negotiations we can give you that number of what your FY '26, the remainder of that contract year could look like. And as we mentioned, once there's a contract, there's a contract. So if you need to squeeze 26 down, but let 27 be what it needs to be, as long as your incoming TA understands that, you should be in good shape. We have made an offer for an executive assistant, subject to all the background checks and, of course, your ratification. We're hopeful that they will be on your agenda of February 4 with a start date of February 28. I want to really, say thank you to Anna and Faye and all the other staff for helping me through all of this. Your staff has been terrific, and I do want to commend them. On the landfill monitoring, the light commissioners did meet. We shared with you that they were going to have a discussion as to whether or not they had any responsible for the additional costs. It's their belief that they should not be, that they should be responsible for what they agreed to whenever that was done 10 years or so ago. We do have a two-part inquiry from DEP. One is that whenever you exceed these monitoring levels within 14 days, you're supposed to do a retesting. We had done the second half testing by the time we got that notice. So we're asking them to consider the second half testing that we got done during the notice period to be the testing we have to do. And we've asked them, which is still pending, for relief from that 14-day, because every time it's going to exceed. It's simply going to exceed. And so to require constant retesting when you already know the answer to us seems foolish, but we don't write the regulations, we just live within them to the extent we need to. There is a secondary report that we had targeted with the engineer to respond to by the middle of February, and that is on track. DPW received their new truck today, and just in time, and we'll review the disposal of surplus. Sometimes departments spend a lot of time convincing you need a new truck and then convince you of why they need to keep the old one. I'm not necessarily of that belief, but I do want to hear the director out. And we can talk disposal. It might make sense to keep it the balance of the season, given your other truck isn't here yet and won't be for a while. But we'll talk about that. I talked with you already about the Cemetery Commission. Overall, the budget versus actual continues to run fine. I will be talking with the staff tomorrow about your inclement weather closure practice. I know they're anticipating closures. I come from northern Vermont, so there are no closures. So I'll have to do a little bit of an attitude adjustment tomorrow, I'm sure. Solid Waste Team continues to meet weekly. We've been joined, and I hope, subject to a schedule, we'll be able to continue. At the end of this, you will see the notes that came out of that. We had a representative from Republic join us. We've went through a number of questions with him. We've sent off some supplemental questions. We're hopeful that he can get us answers by Tuesday, and I'm hopeful that Daryl Klein will join us by telephone conference, because we have some legal questions as well with respect to enforcement. When you look, I'm not going to bore you with the details, but you're going to have to do some amendments to your bylaws and others to cover enforcement here. And we put these out weekly, and we'll send them along to you all as well on an ongoing basis. And the Gantt chart has been revised just a little bit. The advertisement for the Board of Health public hearing will be in the item next Friday and the Friday afterwards. And I know that they're doing a little more work, but as soon as those regs are in draft form, which should be by Monday. We'll get them up on the website as well. And again, a thanks to Candace for helping me through that. On the open staffing issues, I regret to inform you that Janice Ash, your assistant tax collector and a dedicated employee of some 20 years, has chosen to retire. I tried to ask everybody to not retire while I was still here, but that message is not going over to the extent I'd hoped it would. We have posted it on the various bulletin boards, but given advertising deadlines, we have sent the advertisement out to the item and some others. We can't wait that 5 days before we do these things because of the lead time to get items, no pun intended, into the item. We do have the workers' comp issue moving forward, and I expect a final resolution within the next 2 weeks. We have a hearing on the matter in early February. Happy to chat with you one-on-one, but as a personnel matter, I'd rather not go into it any greater. We have supplied the Walmart development team with those sewer billings. And finally, on a sewer note, on February 4, there are some real problems that have developed out of a construction on Hartwell Avenue, perhaps 160, as to how the so-called privilege or connection fee is calculated. It's an anomaly, but it's something we need to address, and so we're going to have some redrafted sewer regs in front of you for your consideration. I think they're fairly straightforward, but you may want to post them for a public hearing. That is really, I think, what we've been working on the last 2 weeks. Happy to answer any questions if I haven't touched upon an issue or there's a question with this report.
Just a question for the report. So the public should attend the public hearing from the Board of Health because they will be meeting on trash, and that will give them some good understanding of policies. The next thing that just I don't see on here, but is there going, are we publishing anything for an opt-out or how people, that's one of the biggest questions that I've received. How do we opt out? How do we opt in?
Yep.
You can say no, but is there any, are we looking at that in the coming month or two?
We're hopeful, again, so Civic Plus has to build the first landing page that we want to build, which is that tab on your very front page. We can't build those. So that work order's gone in. They called today, 2 questions. Question 1 is I wanted it yellow highlighted. Can't do it. Question 2 is I want it subscribable. Can't do it unless it goes to a standalone department. So I'm hopeful that they get that done within the next day or 2. And within a day, business day, after they get that up for us, we're going to be able to start loading up, the blue notice, the frequently asked questions, the notices of public hearings. And that's going to be subscribable. So as soon as somebody sees that go up, they're going to be able to go to the subscribe to town news, and there will be a checkbox. And every time we put something up on that page, they will get an email out of it. So the short answer is yes. The longer answer is I got to get Civic Plus to do these things and then so forth.
So it looks on, if I look at your plan, right now you're reviewing the master list of all residential properties, then you're actually doing the fine tuning for what properties actually would be part of this program, because not all properties, if they're multi-unit, over 3 units, I believe, over 4 units, they have to have their own private hauler. So I'm guessing that will cut out a majority of those, the master list that you're working on?
We don't know just yet. So the master list that we have is by owner. So if it's a class, I can't remember the exact numbers, but we know that's a 1-family house. So in terms of customers, it's a 1. But then I get down to 2 families. By looking at the code, we've had to add a column that tells me there's 2 units there. Then there's a separate code for 4 units and greater. Not as many as I thought the other day, but is it 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? Because if it's 5, as currently proposed, they're out. And we need to be able to tell you, if we cut out 5 and you say, well, Jones has a unit of 5, how many people are getting cut out of the program? I need to be able to answer that question as well. So that's first cut of that list is being done in the treasurer collector's office.
Okay.
Once that's done, we have a message out to Republic. We have all their stops, but it's not completely clear. So we've asked them to refine that. Once we have the answers there, how many are on this list, how many are on that list? And if the number's wildly different, then we got to go manual and just.
Well, I was just gonna say merging that together and then maybe bouncing it off of even the planning board, because anyone in those units would have had to have gotten a special waiver to be on town trash if they're over 4 units. So there's a special permit. If they have a multi-unit foot, they don't get on town trash over 4 unless ZBA or someone waives that.
And we have accessory use apartments we have to account for.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, like.
We've got a good start on that as of yesterday, and I think it's gonna go a little faster than we thought once I saw how many were at the very end.
All right, and just one more, just kind of reading it out so people will have it. Advertising of the Board of Health hearings on 1/30 and February 6th, and then finalizing a mailing list for an opt-out for the first week in February, so February 3rd. Then there's a few other public hearings and a draft to the select board again on March 3rd. I give these are all subject to your changes, but at least providing some.
They're all subject to change. And because we have to send the letters out before the board of, before you've made your final decisions, the letters will be a little bit soft and fudgy. Saying things like, as currently proposed, watch this space kind of thing. Because we can't wait till we're through the whole end of it and then send those letters out.
I would just say, and I only say this because I know you're coming to this town new, senior center director, getting it out in rotation, they have seniors, they have the lunches there, getting just those folks, a lot of them aren't using computers or social media or subscribing, so it just kind of helps when people kind of circulate that. Our library also, getting it in there kind of helps with a little bit of the traffic coming in. I'm just thinking of places to put some information.
The draft regulations, I didn't think of the Council on Aging when I wrote the advertisement, but I do want to recognize not everybody's on a computer and has a printer. So the notice for the Board of Health public hearing lets people know that the regulations, draft regulations, will be available in paper here, in the Board of Health offices, and at the library during regular business hours.
Sorry. Anything else from that report? Before we go into executive session, sorry.
One quick one. So I know the accessory dwellings throughout the state are now starting to pick up popularity. We would consider that to be a 2-unit when we're done, or is that a?
We don't know what we're going to propose to you just yet.
Okay.
And truthfully, while I know you want to recover as much cost as possible, removing barriers to accessory units has a positive impact upon housing production and maintaining elders, within the community. Because I sure know, I hope, would have been nice if it had been a full accessory apartment when we moved my mother-in-law in. So there's a public purpose to each side of that, and that's really going to be for this board. The staff will make a recommendation, but we will also point out, there are 2 sides to this issue.
And so is the thought or the concern there that this is an accessory dwelling unit, and the under the idea that if it's only one person living in the house, they're not generating much trash, and that the single can for trash and can for recycling that the main property is already receiving would be adequate for the secondary? Is that what is that the balance that you're trying to strike?
I mean, that's a challenge across the whole system, because you got 6 people who may be charged the same monthly fee as a house with one
Okay.
person.
That's fine.
Um,
Okay, so to be decided. Yeah, thank you.
Anything else, folks? All right, I'm gonna say for
Sorry.
meeting minute.
I was just gonna say I didn't know if we were at.
I was gonna go through meeting invitations or announcement and future agenda items and then go back.
Excellent.
I don't have any, besides the Board of Health meeting, the public hearing. Any other notices for meeting invitations or announcements?
Just wanted to reiterate, Senior Center, first Wednesday of every month, a select board member is gonna be there. I have February and April, so I have February, I have David.
Yeah, I think that's to make up, because I was supposed to do January, and that day was they canceled it for the
Yeah.
weather.
So February 4th, are you still good for that?
Should be.
I was gonna do the April 1st one. I still need somebody for March 4th.
I will take March.
Okay.
4th. Oh,
You could do May.
Sure.
All right, all right, we got them all.
and then any other announcements? Hearing none, future agenda item, and I'm gonna kick this off with a wonderful agenda item that I think everyone will love. We have a lot of contracts coming up and a lot of talk about buildings individually for departments. But really, the 70% of our town is open space. We were looking, and I think the school is actually looking at regionalization. I know I brought it up 4 years ago, and I got a hard, we don't do that here. But I would like to say we should have an agenda item that talks about regionalization of services across the board for the town. What makes sense for a town our size? It's costly to have this many employees. It's costly to have this many buildings. I know some towns have done regionalization assessments. I think Rutland did one. They did a regionalization assessment. Was it Rutland or Holden, of what they could do? And I don't know what our options are, but I'm thinking even for fire, DPW, we have an ambulance service. They're growing and they have needs. They need trucks and buildings, and it's really something that's become not feasible for a town of 7,800 people that have to pick up that burden of taxes. So I'd like to see us really look at that and find a path forward to see what makes sense. It might be nothing, but at least before going to our residents with a request for 4 new buildings and a fire truck for $1.4 million and $1.8 million, I'm sorry. I think we have to actually be reasonable and say, what can we actually do in the next 20 years without our taxes being $10,000 more a year? And that's without salary increases. So I'm throwing that on you, not right now, because I see your face. I'm just putting it there, saying you don't have to do it while you're away either. We'll wait till you get back.
I think that this conversation makes a lot of sense.
Not right now.
September. No.
That's why I'm planting a seed now.
Annually, before your budget process, it is my belief that select boards should engage in a retreat, planning seminar, whatever you want to call it, and lay out what you want to get accomplished over the next couple of years. Because something like this takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And there are limits on the staff. And there's a lot of community involvement, and a lot of these things take a lot of evolution. But and I will send you an example in one community in which I did this. It really is helpful to have that work plan in place. So let me send that out to you, and then we can chat about the best time for you to put it on the agenda of your new incoming town administrator?
I'm placing it here because I figured it will erupt after this, but with everything coming up, it has to be said at
But if
some
nothing
point.
else, it needs to go into the transition memo.
That's perfect. You write it there. All right. Any other future agenda items or select board reports? Hearing none, I will go to the next item, which is entering into executive session. Town administrator has requested an executive session. As chair, I consider enter into executive session under the provisions of Massachusetts General Law 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 3, to discuss strategy with respect to a collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting, and I believe an open meeting will have a detrimental effect on the bargaining and litigation of the public body. As chair, I declare that we enter into executive session and we will close out the meeting in executive session and not be coming back into open session. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Hold on. I need to amend that because I see the other bullet under here. This is to discuss strategy with respect to the collective bargaining agreement, Teamsters Local 170. Could I ask that we amend the motion to include that? Because I did not see that last bullet.
I'd like to amend the motion to include that.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Jay?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Vanessa?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, folks.